Hello guys and welcome back to TNT Madness. Today we are going to be looking at one of the strongest walls currently in Minecraft. It's a very new wall and the original design for it was made from a guy called Minechat. He's very talented at what he does. He normally does regen walls, new types of walls for them, and ways to destroy them. So he's very talented, and if you want to have a look at his videos, there'll be a description below in the description. But anyway, this is a very strong wall, and it is extremely hard to raid. In fact, there is only one possible way to raid it if you actually build it properly. And the way this works is you have water around the back, and you have lava going around the front, so the only actual piece of the wall is the cobblestone that is in between. So the cobblestone is, you can destroy the cobblestone, but it'll get regenerated. So you can shoot through that, but then it'll just regenerate. The only issue of this wall is you can shoot through the middle of it. But that is actually the strongest part, which I'll get to very shortly. It's because you have to stack all the way back till we can find a backboard, and you can't water push this, you can't double stack this, you can't double tap it, you can't really do anything other than this one particular way to actually bust it. So that's these walls, so let's actually have a look at them in action. So now on to actually showing this. So what we have here is our giant walls. So we have these two water source blocks at the back that aren't actually connected to the actual wall, because what you need to do is you have the water extend out here so it only generates the cobblestone on either side of this, and this is extremely important because it means that the water won't be interfering with the actual wall. So the main thing that is with this is most of the time you have to sand stack to the height you want to get to and destroy that wall, and you could double tap it, but you can't double tap it because you are going inside lava, and then if you destroy the wall there's no backplate behind it because you've got the water. And if you try and sand stack in front of it, you may get rid of this lava here, but there's still the original source here, so it'll still regenerate the cobblestone. And you're probably wondering why there's a gap in between, and that's just because that way no one can actually shoot through it, and if they do destroy this block, then they can't destroy any other block. It's a bit like how pancake walls work, but a bit harder. So that's how that particular bit works. So the only actual way you can raid this wall is if you somehow stack this middle bit here, because then all the lava will disappear. But that's easier said than done, because what you can do is, if someone is firing sand through there, it will shoot straight through this. And depending on how far your next wall is behind it, it could be like 10-20 blocks. So they have to stack all that sand to the required height, so let's say that's 200 sand, and then they have to stack that like 20 blocks this way, so that's 200 times 20, so that's 4,000 sand. That's a lot of TNT before they can actually get through this one wall. So that is the only possible way to raid these walls, and it is extremely strong for that one reason. So this, in my opinion, is probably the strongest wall currently in the game for actually just stalling anyone building cannons. So it's not even that much harder to build than normal regen walls, and you only have to place it about half as much as the actual lava. So it is extremely strong, and if you want to go a little bit more in depth or just get the original story or another side of the story, then go click somewhere on screen or in the description below to see Minechat's video about this whole concept. So anyway, now that I'm done rambling, let's actually get on with the tutorial. So now onto the tutorial. What you're going to need is a 5x7 area, and for every extra part of the wall you want to add, you're going to need an extra 4 blocks. And for when you do the corners, you only have to add an extra 2 blocks because you're building it around the actual water source block here, as you saw at the start of the video. So this iron represents the main part that we're going to be building, and this just represents the extension that you're going to be building. The blue represents where we're going to be placing the water and the lava, but it's slightly more complex than that, as we have to extend the lava and water in certain places, but apart from that, it's quite basic. But anyway, what you're going to need is some building blocks. It's just scaffolding, so just use whatever block you have lying around. If you have cobble, then use that. If you have a really cheap resource like dirt or netherrack, then use that instead, because you'll be replacing it with cobblestone anyway, because when it gets destroyed it will turn into cobblestone anyway, and unless you have OCD or want to look nice, then it's not really that big of an issue. But so just really use whatever resource is laying around. Apart from that, you're going to need a lot of lava. I'd recommend that you have some sort of lava lake in the nether with a set home there, and you're going to need some sort of water source. So now onto the tutorial. What we have here, and it's the second time I've said that, but what we have here is the blue representing where we're going to be placing the water and the lava. And the first thing, unlike normal genning walls, you just want to actually place down all the spots where you're going to actually place your water in that, just because water and lava, just because it gives you a grasp of where you're working at. You don't have to do that, you can do one spot at a time, but I just recommend to actually place all the blocks down at once, as I would recommend just having that, and I'd recommend having your scaffolding somewhere in the middle so you have a place to work from. So the next thing I'd recommend that you do before you do too much else is I'd recommend that you have on each side of the wall, you only have to do it on one side for each wall, but I recommend that you place down cobblestone in bits of 2 until you actually get to the bottom, which can be very frustrating depending on how high your actual wall is, and make sure that you have some sort of sponge or bottom sort of scaffolding with slabs or something, just so it doesn't automatically get blown up. So you want to do that on that side, and then when we do it later we'll do it on this side. But anyway, what we want to do next is, since this will be the actual, this is not the actual place where we're going to have it. So I actually placed that one block too far back. You're actually supposed to be placing it beside your lava source block on either side like this. You only have to do it one side because it just means later on when you place the rest of the lava, you'll be placing the sources inside the block like so. And I'd recommend you do this before you actually placing the lava inside, because with some sort of scaffolding that you have, before you actually push the lava out, which I'll explain what that means in a second. And this is just because this will mean that only these bits regenerate, and if you actually make it so these regenerate, it will actually be worse off. So what you want to do next is you want to bring this forward. So what I recommend you do is you come up to the front block like so, then you go down by one block and place a block along here. And that brings the lava along the side like so, so then it can flow down and do its thing. And you want to do this for every wall that you have, and after you see the lava go over the side, you can then get rid of the block underneath it, but you want to get rid of the block underneath first, so that way the lava doesn't go over the front. So now that we've done that, we have now done the lava. So all we have to do now is bring the water forward by 2 blocks, which can be slightly more frustrating, but the way I'd recommend you do it is make some pillars on each side like so, then go down and place a piece underneath like here, and then another one here, and then you can just destroy those 2 and let it fill itself up. Then you can get rid of the blocks around it, and then you can do the same for the rest of the water source blocks. And believe me, after you've done a few, you get pretty proficient at it. There are probably better ways to do it, but this is just my personal way of doing it, because you can do it really quickly if you actually do it right, and it doesn't screw up anything. So now we've done it for those walls, and this is the very final one. And you don't want to make it so the water goes in any other direction or over the front, or else it can screw it up, and that way it doesn't look symmetrical and will probably drive you and your friends crazy. So anyway, now that you've done that, your wall should look something along the lines of this, and we don't need that block there. So now your wall is essentially done, and they have to fire through the front here to whatever backboard you have, and then they have to stack all the way back here and destroy it. And these blocks here, they can destroy it, but they'll just regenerate anyway, so that's not an issue, unless they somehow have a perfectly timed cannon, which will be extremely complex to actually shoot through it. But those are actually bigger than actual regen busters, so I doubt anyone will actually try and do that, unless they're trying to get through this specific wall. So anyway, that's the end of the video, so I hope you guys did enjoy it, and goodbye from TNT Madness. Anyway, this is a very, it's not the simplest hammer, but the main concept's very simple, and then you just gotta pretty much hook up all the redstone. So let's have a look at it in action. Then you can, because this thing can actually stack 240, so you can use that. So to start with, I should probably explain how this works. So what I have here is essentially one side of the hammer, where we have our squid farm, which I have no idea why there's a squid in there. But what we're going to be trying to do is this will have